Many conquistadors were surprised to learn that their expedition would continue inland to attack Montezuma in the capital. Many of them talked openly of rebellion.
When Cortés decided to go inland, half of his men, were protesting and wanted to go back as per the terms of their engagement.
So Cortés came up with a plan to keep his troops in line. Cortés established a settlement and legally created the town of Veracruz. He then made himself governor of this new Spanish colony. As governor of Veracruz, Cortés would no longer report to his superior Velázquez. Cortés had removed a link from the chain of command, and now he answered directly to the King of Spain. The next part of his plan was much more dramatic.
Cortés has the ships burnt off the coast and scuttled so that men can't go back, so that he can maintain his force in order to carry out the victory that he so desires.
But this action also cut Cortés's ability to resupply his army. It was a drastic step for any commander to take. Cortés had secured the cooperation, if not the loyalty, of his men. To legally secure his position, he sent a ship to the King of Spain. That ship would deliver Cortés's personal letters, gold, native artifacts, and precious gems.
And so all of these things, along with the money, are used to essentially establish him as, instead of a rogue conquistador, as a legitimate one. The crown will then support him.
Cortés then designated a rear guard of 150 men to remain at Veracruz. This ensured no other expedition of conquistadors could encroach on his claim. While Cortés politicked, Montezuma launched a counteroffensive of the supernatural sort. He sent his most talented magicians to Veracruz to drive Cortés and his army back into the sea. The Aztec mysticism didn't work. Cortés and his army marched up the coast to Zempoala. There, he began a shrewd campaign to recruit native allies to augment his small force of 300 conquistadors.
At no point in the conquest did the Spanish forces constitute more than 1% of the fighting forces.
In the summer of 1519, Cortés made an alliance with the ruler of Zempoala, a man the Spaniards nicknamed the Fat Chief. The Fat Chief felt Montezuma's taxes were a burden on his people, and he was glad to hear that the conquistador intended to conquer Montezuma. And he was honored when Cortés asked for his assistance.
The Fat Chief promised his support of Cortés's objective to take Tenochtitlan. In order to show that support, he gave Cortés a very important gift: 400 native porters. And that brings up an important maxim of warfare. Amateurs study tactics, professionals study logistics.
Logistics is the answer to everything in Mexico. Someone's got to carry all the powder, all the shot, all the bolts for crossbows, all the shot for muskets. It's a huge logistical challenge. And the Spaniards can't carry all of that. They have their own loads.
With his new transportation department, Cortés was ready to continue the trek to the Aztec capital. The path Cortés selected was a difficult one. The Spaniards slogged through the rainy season in mud and then across barren lands near a large salt lake. Cortés's next stop would be Tlaxcala, home of the Aztecs' greatest rivals. Though surrounded by subjects of the Aztec Empire, the Tlaxcalans remained independent. Cortés sent a message to the chiefs requesting a meeting. The Tlaxcalans rejected Cortés's overture. They answered with wave after wave of their best warriors. The strategy wasn't very effective against the artillery of the Spaniards.
The Spaniards, given their weapons and tactics, couldn't always take the offensive. They were too few, but they were very good at taking the defensive. They could withdraw into themselves and hold a very small perimeter. And the advantage the Spaniards had is their weapons could penetrate the opposing line every time.
The artillery also caused native warriors to panic. Their confusion made them easy targets for mounted conquistadors. With casualties climbing, the leaders of Tlaxcala called a halt to the fighting and invited the victorious conquistador into their city. With his team of translators, Cortés proposed that the Tlaxcalans join his army, and a deal was struck for a united march against the Aztecs.
This alliance was a brilliant strategic move. The Tlaxcalan were the biggest and baddest that old Mexico had to offer. They fought in large formations, and in addition to obsidian blades, they used weapons like this. Now, this is called an atlatl, and this device is used to add impetus, power, and speed to a spear when it's launched. Now, Cortés took the Tlaxcalan and he integrated them into his own army. He had his conquistadors trained side by side with them till they had a well-oiled fighting machine ready to go.
After 3 weeks of training and a little R&R, Cortés and his combined army left Tlaxcala on 12 October 1519. Nearly 1,000 Tlaxcalan warriors joined the Spanish force. They'd see their first action just 25 miles away in Cholula, the last major city between Cortés and Montezuma's capital. These are the remains of Cholula. This great native city had been an ally of Tlaxcala, but was now firmly under Aztec rule. Montezuma ordered the Cholulans to attack the Spaniards and kill Cortés. But Cortés's Tlaxcalan allies discovered the plot. Cortés decided to launch a preemptive strike.
Shortly after entering Cholula, there's a massacre in which a few thousand people are killed.
The surprised natives were no match for the conquistadors, especially with their new Tlaxcalan allies by their side.
The Tlaxcaltecs had allied with the Spaniards, didn't necessarily trust them, didn't necessarily know if they were allies, and part of their demand for this alliance was go down and massacre these people.
News of the massacre spread quickly. For the Spaniards, it began a pattern of using terror as a weapon.
I think he's sending a message. If you're with us, you're fine. But if you're against us, watch out, because we're coming at you.
By the 1st of November, Cortés and his army were ready to leave Cholula. With Tenochtitlan only 50 miles away, Cortés took the direct route, marching his army right between two ominous volcanic peaks. At sunrise, the Spaniards looked out over the Valley of Mexico.
There isn't a city in Europe that is even half as large as Tenochtitlan. So it's really a massively impressive city to them. Very sophisticated, very well organized, and they've never seen anything like it.
The words of Bernal Diaz del Castillo, one of Cortés's soldiers, captured the feelings of the Spaniards when they first saw the Valley of Mexico. Diaz wrote, "When we saw all those cities and villages built in the water and other great towns on dry land, and that straight and level causeway leading to Mexico, we were astounded. Indeed, some of our soldiers asked whether or not it was all a dream." Just 9 months after he'd left Cuba, the heart of the Aztec Empire lay beneath him, and Cortés gazed out at the riches, the gold, the buildings of this great capital. He could see his prize. Now, he just had to win it. November 1519, Cortés and his conquistadors began the march into the Valley of Mexico.